Hello everyone, my name is Tim Tang from Hughes, and we're coming to you from the NACS 2022 trade show floor. I'm here with GrayTaylor of Conexus. Gray, can you tell us a little bit about what do you do for Conexus?
So I'm executive director, which means I'm the least qualified person on the staff. What I do is I work with a team that serves basically the retailer, although we have a lot of vendor support like yourself with Hughes. And the whole idea is how do we open up the data silos that we have in our industry by using standards and standard data definitions so that we have a freely flowing set of data, which is good for the industry and it's good for all the players in the industry. So that's what Conexus does at its core. What we really have moved into now is looking into the future and putting together a data roadmap. And that's kind of proven very valuable to folks because I'm a big fan of future-back thinking.
Yeah.
And if you can't articulate, and it's going to be wrong, but if you can't articulate where the consumer is going to be in 10 years, how can you make decisions on the tech stack and innovations that you want to put into your stores going forward? So that's really what the roadmap's about. Is we think it's going to be out here, 10 years, whatever. This is what it's going to look like, and here becomes then a roadmap we would recommend that you measure all your tech projects by, and also start looking at your tech debt, which is pretty considerable and unknown until you have to find out about it.
That's one of the biggest challenges with technology, right? There are so many. It's so volatile, it's so chaotic, it continues to change and evolve, and just when you think you're about to get some understanding of what's going on, there's another disruption that takes place. Can you offer some principles in terms of how you distinguish between what's a shiny toy and what's actually of meaningful business value?
There's a lot of shiny objects out there, right? The cool thing about shiny objects are, though, let's use Oculus glasses. That's a shiny object. I don't think you expect, or I expect, that we're all going to be walking around with these blinders on with hand controls. But the stuff that they're learning in the gaming systems will get applied to, I don't want to call it the metaverse, that's a trade name by Facebook, Web 3.0, Web 4.0, because what it's going to be is artificial intelligence projected in a meaningful way to a consumer. How they're going to look at it is going to be has yet to be determined, right? So Google made a stab at it with the Google glasses, and then you've got Oculus, which is totally impractical outside of your gaming environment. But it's going to miniaturize. You've got glasses, I wear glasses. Pretty soon there's going to be a heads-up display in there that's going to be that representation, but you'll also see a lot more 3D views of things on the fly. You won't have to sit in a 3D theater to watch what your next store is going to look like. It'll be coming through your glasses. So
innovation that's coming from the consumers is a great leading indicator of what's going to be coming into the stores. Can you talk about what you're seeing in the stores?
Yeah, so something happened about 10 years ago. Actually, it happened 15 years ago. With the introduction of the iPhone, all of a sudden the tables got turned on tech. Prior to that, it was the vendors coming up with a cool new idea that the retailers would say, oh yeah, that's cool, I'll try that out. Pay at the pump was one of those examples. Customers weren't asking for it, but mobile and their pump company said, hey, this would be kind of cool. It's really convenient, and it makes our stores look less busy, so more inviting. Well, in 2008, iPhone's out there, and the iPod had been out there for a while, and now you've got the mobile connected consumer. And obviously that ecosystem just bred all kinds of new applications so that a consumer on the go could do all the stuff that they used to have to sit at their PC to do. And that started pushing us. So now, instead of tech coming from our vendors down, we need to spend a lot of time looking at the consumers. If you've got kids, well, first of all, look at demographics. I'm a boomer, I'm going away, right? The next big chunk of customers is 20 to 30 years old, and guess what? They don't use cash. They don't even use credit cards. They're using Venmo. They're using all of these fintech applications around it. Well, how do we take Venmo? How do we take any of these things? They expect to be able to order stuff online by voice. None of my kids use text searching anymore. They use voice search. So they're driving the envelope. We need to be there when that envelope, when we need to be there now. We're already late to the game. So NACS has got Thriver going. Well, that's the first simple step of how do I get my store in the search engine?
Yeah.
Because right now it's like if I walk out my front door and I say, hey, If I say it, it'll open up. I'll say Siri. I don't have Siri. Hey Siri, where's the nearest convenience store? You know what it tells me?
Yeah.
It tells me that Walgreens is right down the road. Now I pass the 7-Eleven to go to the Walgreens.
Oh, wow.
Now that sense has changed. But if I'm sitting in a store and I say, hey, where's the nearest ATM? It drives me to JP Morgan when I'm sitting in front of an ATM. So Google and Apple, they don't understand all the things we have in our stores. So Thriver is really about, how do I get my offer online?
Yeah.
That's the first step, because down the road is going to move into more of a deep commerce relationship. And I think our opportunity is on-the-go consumers, not last mile, but on the go. Because Walmart, that's a scale thing. Walmart in Austin, Texas has promised home delivery in 30 minutes. All right, so now I can get everything out of the Walmart store in 30 minutes. We know that 85% of the things bought at our stores is consumed within an hour. So now we're down to a half an hour.
Wow.
Right? And pretty soon with drone technology and so forth, they'll get it down to pretty much immediate. So how do we get into drones and compete there?
Yeah.
How do we stay convenient? And then how do we stay convenient with people, with the mobile customer? That to me is the biggest opportunity.
Is it doing a like for like, following the ways, or do C-stores, because of just the nature of who they are, and their presence in the community, have a different approach? What is the advantages that they ought to be leveraging in order to be able to compete with? It seems like a David and Goliath between a local C-store and their local Walmart supercenter.
You know this, it's a fine line between being fast follower, being first to market.
Yeah.
And I think with technology moving as fast as it does, there's a concept called red queening, where even a fast follower will start doing things in response to a loss of sales due to a competitive move. And then what you do is start doing stupid things to kind of parry it. I am a big believer in the industry taking a leadership role on anything convenience.
Okay.
Right? That's our moat. And
it's in our name.
It's in our name. That's kind of our brand, right? And name one business that's not trying to be more convenient, that's trying to be less convenient, right? So the idea is, how do we get on the leading edge? And we're really kind of crippled by the idea that we're so highly fragmented. 145,000 stores, about 90,000 of them are single site operators with zero scale capability.
Yeah.
So we're looking a lot at confederated services. Thriver is a confederated service. We actually, when I was at NACS in the early turn of the century, we started the card payment program, which was, again, a confederated service to unbranded folks to lower their card fees. That's what I think NACS's role is going forward, and that's what we did here. So we brought in Spark Cognition because it would be easier for Spark to go to Walgreens or to go to Kroger or somebody else and launch this stuff. Our job is to get them to see the attraction of our industry and bring it into our industry first. And then we'll be happy to show Walmart what we're doing with it. But we want to be first. We don't want to be a fast follower on stuff like that.
There are some things you just simply can't afford to.
We cannot.
The TruAge, the identity, that if you were a fast follower, you end up giving basically that whole side of the business to the cardholders, credit card companies.
And that's exactly it, which is, a lot of people can't draw that line, but drawing the line is payments, identity will be your payment mechanism 10 years from now. Visa and MasterCard are making significant investments in identity, and Apple just announced that, hey, the mobile wallet or the mobile driver's license, you'll be able to get on a plane with it. Well, technically it will, but does everybody want big tech to own your identity and how you use it? Because that will lead to interchange on identity.
Yes.
So the long game with TruAge is simply this. We wanted to come out with, we're very big fans of the distributed verifiable credential ecosystem that World Wide Web is supporting and DHS is supporting, which says that nobody makes money off of identity. We're all trusted service providers working in an interoperable space. And so today it's age verification, but it could also be, they've got a permanent residency card that they're issuing that is a trusted verifiable credential. I think Treasury at the end of the day is going to require that you identify yourself if you want to own Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. But they want to keep the anonymity side of it unless you break the law. So pseudonymous personas are going to be, what we do with TruAge is going to be the same thing that we have to do in crypto. So it's a huge opportunity for us to provide that face-to-face boarding onto those platforms like TruAge and so forth. So this is just the toe in the water. 10 years from now, we're hoping that You hire a new cashier, you look at their digital resume, and there's a certificate that says I took WeCard training, I've taken alcohol handling or alcohol sales training, and I have a food handling license. And then I don't have to put that employee back through training to make sure they did take the training. I've got it here and it's vouched for by these organizations.
You painted a pretty clear picture of what 10 years from now looks like. What are the intermediate milestones to get to that stage?
We got a lot of fighting to do. All right, so everybody, because identity is so important, there's a silent war going on by some very big armies. Apple is in it, Google is in it, Microsoft is in it, Facebook is in it, and what they're trying to do is really kind of just turn identity into their product, which is antithetical to Web 3.0, right? Yeah. Web 3.0 is supposed to be distributed.
Right.
They're desperately trying to hold on to the walled gardens of the web. And so one of our short-term jobs in working with states AGs and with DHS and so forth is to make sure that that doesn't happen, first and foremost. So there's going to be a lot of battles, a lot of fits and starts. And one of the other problems we have is we're still very analog, very existential, paper-based identities, which is why we're all getting hacked.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bloody road to get to true digital, and we want to do it on the right way. But once we get there, you're going to see data security issues largely go away. Because if you think about it, 70% of your data security, your hacks are essentially your own employees opening the wrong attachment.
Okay.
What if every attachment was digitally signed and verified against an authentication table? Because you can spoof the email address.
Yes.
But what if before I opened it, Microsoft said, I'm going to run. Is that person real who sent that? And is that document in their registry that they did send it? And now you've taken care of 70% of the phishing attacks.
Interesting. Let me shift the conversation to data. Data is the new oil. Data is the way by which we can offer a personalized experience. What are you seeing in terms of how C-stores ought to be thinking about data?
Yeah, so the first thing is we don't have enough of it.
Really?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're capturing BI data. We might do customer accounts based off of how many receipts we do. We have not even begun to start digitizing our environment and creating a digital twin. So IoT to me is one of the things that we should be in right now. We're late to the party. And it's really about how do I capture things that are happening in my stores and recording them in a context of the business intelligence. So when it's sunny outside, what does that do to my category sales? Oh, I've noticed that iced tea goes up. Okay, that's intuitive. But down the road, we may find, once we have enough data and we're training on that data, we may find, you know what, oddly enough, Huggies diaper sales go up. We don't know why. We'll never find out why, but it just happens. And there's a 85% confidence that that happens. And what's really comes out of that is things that are not intuitive.
Yeah.
Because anybody can go into a database and say, I think this happened. Did it really happen? The computer is going to start saying, I know you don't know this, but I've noticed this pattern over here that you may want to take a look at.
Yeah.
So you think, a good example would be if I put Coke on sale, and what really happens is I sell more Mars bars when Coke is on sale, we make the mistake of putting Mars bars on sales. We should actually jack the price of Mars bars because demand goes up for that on the Coke sale, and therefore maximize our profits. Sure. The other thing is hyper-customization. It's not enough anymore. Our market segmentation was Bubba, right? And now we got Bubette, but we haven't been able to get Bubette to come into the store, so we got 2 people in there. We need to think in terms of working our way to 5 personas, 10 personas, 20 personas, and the only way to get there is to get data about each one of those personas. And by the way, it may not be age, it may not be ethnicity, it may be none of those things. There may be other qualities like, I play golf, there's my persona. They buy stuff totally different from people who play tennis. And then you use that information to customize offers. And so you cannot do customized offers without deep data and knowing your customer really, really well.
You made an earlier point that we're in such a fragmented industry and the data sits inside of each of these little entities. Yeah. How can we get a federated understanding of at an industry level of our data? Because the industry is not just competing with itself, it's competing with the QSR industry, the dollar stores, the grocery industries. There's a lot of competitive pressures here, and these other industries seem to be already ahead.
Yeah, so Walmart, they've been collecting petabytes of data since 1996. In fact, the old joke in that day was, well, yeah, what are you going to do with all that trash? Oh yeah, well Walmart's vision, future back vision was, we know computing and storage is just going to keep going down, and someday artificial intelligence, which has been around since 1963 as a concept, someday AI is going to be real enough that we can go back and train on that data. So Walmart, you were talking about scale, Walmart knows what the American consumer wants, right? So they've
been watching it for decades.
Right. And they have enough stores with enough sales. They have on their own a pretty credible AI database to train on. And hey, there's Mercedes now parked in front of Walmart. It's not just lower income Americans. You got a lot of higher income Americans who've been shopping there too. So they've got a really good view of the American consumer. We have a very myopic view because it's just our chains data. So if I'm a single site operator, I know nothing. If I'm a 900 store operator, I know something, but only about my demographic. The idea on data is, I believe, is that we need to confederate data at a statistically significant level, 30,000, 40,000 stores, transaction log data, plus any IoT data that's coming in, so that you have a big enough data set that is not keyed to a retail brand, right? Because QT is a different brand from Sheets. Even though they kind of look the same, they are very different in their appeal to the consumer. By having that breadth, you can get more and more information about the consumer. You can get more of their shopping habits. And then if we're really good, we'll find some way to get QSR data. We'll find some way to get big box data. Because ultimately the end game is whoever has the complete view of the consumer's journey in life knows how to serve the consumer and do what Google calls psychic pizza. Yeah. In other words, I'll deliver the pizza you wanted before you even think you want that pizza on Friday night.
Listening to you talk, I guess the first thing that pops into my mind is to say that you're right. It's not just about the C-store industry's data, it's about the dollar stores and the QSR's data. The only entity I know that has all three would be the credit card companies.
That's right. And they have all the data.
I
mean, MasterCard famously said, look, I can tell you that 30% of your customers filling up at your tank are going to on the way to a QSR.
Yeah.
Because they watched the transaction happen here, and then they watched the time, 10 minutes later the transaction happened over here. Yet you may have a credible QSR offer.
Okay.
Well, why do we want third parties to know more about us?
Okay.
And that really is the shame of it. We need to work in that direction. We need to be open-minded.
Okay.
And go ahead.
Let me ask you about store operations and what you see evolving on that front with the labor shortage and the tightness of the capacity and the escalating customer expectations. What do you see happening in terms of technology, in terms of simplifying store operations?
Yeah, so first of all, minimum wage has been in a lot of states has been a real enemy of ours. Yeah. Which is a shame because it should be your first job. And nobody ever looked at convenience store, being a clerk at a convenience store. You shouldn't look at that as your career. Right. But the real minimum wage is zero. Okay. Right? And it's zero because of robotics and technology. And so, yes, we have a labor shortage, and it's really pronounced right now, but I have yet to hear executives ever say, oh, labor's not a problem anymore, right? And so when unemployment is high, then it's I can't get quality people. Today it's I just can't get people, right? So really the way to do this is computers really can't replace interaction. Okay. I'm a human, you're a human. There's an emotional bond in that, and computers can't do that. So, but there are jobs, I call them job suck. There are jobs that just suck, and is there a way that we can take that stuff off the back of our folks and get them more and more towards consumer interaction, being friendly, that's what convenience stores are. I remember during COVID, I would get in the car and go to a convenience store because I was getting
stir crazy at home.
I would just go out and talk to the clerks at a convenience store just to find out how things are going. That's what people do really well. You need people to do that, but you can probably save labor if you can automate a lot of the stuff that they don't need to do. So I look at it, I tell people this: if you see a human touching paper, ask yourself, does that have to keep doing that? Bills of lading coming in from gasoline. I have to wait for my guy to type that in. Didn't we invent OCR 25 years ago, and you could bring that in and read it? I mean, is there ways for us to use robotic process automation to get disparate systems to talk to each other, see if there's value, and then let's work towards a permanent interface so that we're taking all that paperwork out.
Oh, that's tremendous.
We should close all of our offices at our convenience stores. There should be no manager's office in a convenience store. That just tells you got too much paper, in my opinion.
Interesting. That's the opportunity.
Super
That's the
America
opportunities.
actually did that in the 90s, and everybody's like, why would you do that? You're counting your cash in the front window. He said, no, I want my managers up front. I don't ever want them hiding in the back room. Good point.
It's a whole new kind of paradigm of how you think about customer service and the role of the manager and the employees. It's actually, the technology is changing our perspective of what it means to be a C-store employee.
And let's think about this too, which is, okay, how am I engaging with my employees? We've seen statistics now coming in saying the more engaged your employee is, the better that employee is, and the more they're likely they're going to stay with you.
Right.
Killing this. Most of our guys ban the use of cell phones at the point of sale.
Okay.
All right. Your employees and your next generation customer, they live off their cell phones. So where's your cashier engagement application on there? How do you gamify performance by a cashier so that if I come to work every day with the right uniform on, I'm checking through 200 customers in my shift. I'm doing everything right. In fact, I'm doing everything better than everybody else. How do you make me a king?
Yeah.
How do we take the gig economy and put it into our stores? My daughter worked at Texas Born for 18 months. And I asked her, she started doing favors, a gig. And I said, well, why are you doing that? She said, Dad, I don't want to commit to Texas Born hours I'm not sure I have because of cheer and school. And so she said, I'll commit to the hours I know I have. And now I'm using favor as a way to make money when I have those rare times where I have hours and
nothing to do.
So it was like, okay, well, why wouldn't the chain operator allow gigging? Yeah. In other words, which means gig between stores. And while we're at it, why don't we borrow something from the airline industry, which is if you're a flight attendant who's been there for 20 years, you get to hold a line. Your seniority, it's called seniority. You want Christmas off? You get first choice to take Christmas off, and everybody else can bid on taking that time. And you could even have dynamic salaries. So Christmas morning when nobody wants to work, I'll pay you $25 an hour if you come in. That's the current bid. So it's a bid-ask type of thing. Nice tight market.
That's intriguing. That would actually kind of encourage loyalty, encourage retention then too as well. And then you made another mention too that I thought was is worth highlighting too as well, is that your employees today, they don't actually get noticed. They don't know that when they're doing something right, they actually don't necessarily get credit for that.
They only hear when they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no carrot, all stick.
But why as an employee work even harder if nobody's paying attention and nobody notices? If you had a computer vision system that was saying that, hey, the shelves are always stocked when I'm on shift, I get a point for that and turn it into a game. Now I'm self-motivated to actually do this.
And then you could have your team members collectively come up and say, who's got the best store?
Yeah.
And you can reward the best store. So we gotta stop thinking about the traditional, I want my cashier just paying attention to the customer. Hey, when they're not there, could they be going through a training module?
Yeah.
Could they be improving, their skill sets so they
5 minutes at a time.
Exactly. And that's the attention span of the average teenager. Yeah. I know you've got kids too. It's just like, if you're talk to them for more than 30 seconds, you've outlived your usefulness.
One of the things I've really appreciated about you is you've got your eye on all the things that are happening globally too as well. What are you learning in terms of what our future is going to look like based on what you've seen out there in the rest of the world?
To me, I think the best country for operations is Ireland.
Really?
Yeah. You go down the Irish motorway and you see some of these names, and the stores are just beautiful. They do fast food better than anybody else. It's fresh. It's made in the store, in-store theater. And it's almost like gas is like, we also sell gas. They have great places to stop down, have a cup of coffee. Yes, a lot of it is the European lifestyle of, I'll take a break. I remember going to Germany once and in the 90s and asked for a cup of coffee to go, and the taxi driver said, no, you have to, we'll sit here and drink coffee. That's why Mercedes and Porsches didn't have coffee cups, cup holders until like 2005. It's like, why would anybody drive with a hot cup of coffee? But the Maxall and some of the other names in Ireland, they have just said, look, we're more than a rest stop. People want to be able to get a good quality sandwich. They want to be able to have a nice quiet place to sit down. They want Wi-Fi. They want to be able to conduct business, and they're going to be here for a half an hour to an hour. Imagine that. Imagine our traditional C-store saying, I'm going to keep my customer here for a half an hour.
EV charging is going to keep them there for 20 minutes.
Exactly. That's the thing. And so if we don't figure out a way to keep them there happily for a half an hour, guess what? They spend a half an hour at the Whole Foods. They'll just charge up at the Whole Foods.
That's right.
And so to me, it's key on many levels, because we're going to see gasoline demand destruction. And that's not because of EVs, that's because of just mileage is going to improve. Technology is improving the ICE engine. So what do you fill that with? How do you justify that expensive piece of property that you did on gas when gas really isn't there?
You're talking about a meaningful elevation to like what a Disney-like experience in the gas station.
Yeah. In fact, we should look at Disney billing. The whole idea of why do I have to keep whipping out my credit card at my pump and then in the store and all that? Well, why can't I just do resort folio billing, which is I walk in and I buy whatever I want, and you'll get paid tomorrow.
You know, one thing with all that you know of where we are as an industry, and my question is really more at an industry level, as a whole, as a body of entities, if you will, how do you see where we are today and us changing to where we need to be? How, with the meaningful amount of tech debt that we are sitting on, and the serious reasons for change and pressures on the industry, everything from labor shortage, inflation, and all the competitive pressures from grocery, C-stores, and dollar stores and you have to change. How does that change unfold over the next few years?
You know, one of the most important places I see that we can improve ourselves is supply chain. It sounds mundane, right? Yeah. McKinsey has a series of reports on IR 4.0, and they said, hey, look, everybody's doing the consumer-facing stuff. Over half of the economic benefits, coming from your back door. And so we all lived through this with the pandemic. We couldn't get Red Bull. Well, we couldn't get Red Bull because Red Bull didn't have metal to make cans. And we don't have any supply chain visibility all the way back. So we're constantly whipsawing our vendors. You know, let's blame ourselves a little bit for this. You know, I buy a lot of Coke, then I stop ordering Coke. They're stuck with inventory, and so we have this fluctuation. So I think that's one place where we should be eliminating paper, and I think blockchain is going to do that. Walmart's going to lead the way. So they're going to do blockchain order to cash. That's going to make life a lot easier. That's one thing we could do very, very quickly. Work with Cormark, work with our trading partners to say, guys, why am I still doing PDNs on PacBev? Why can't I just tell you what I need from my stock and my computer vision? You don't have to send the guy in to build the order. You just show up with what I need. You save money, I save money. That's one thing. The other thing is we've got about 8 years to up our game in food service, and a lot of our stores are spec'd out to just roller dogs.
Roller what?
Roller dogs.
No.
Right? Roller grills.
Yeah.
That's my food service. That's not going to be good enough.
Yeah.
And so the question is, you got about 8 years to figure out if you're going to be serious about food service or not. We should be benchmarking against the other QSRs, like Taco Bell and so forth. And look what they're doing. They're going complete software-defined store. They're putting in edge servers, and they only have 4 products that they combine into 52, right? It's beans and so forth. But they're automating far faster than we are, because they have to operate in an 8,000 store chain environment.
That's right.
And so we have tech debt there. If we feel that we compete with QSRs, we do. We do $50 billion a year in food sales.
That's where all the profitability is.
That's it. And that's where your future profitability is.
Yeah.
And that means, okay, how do we do DoorDash? So look at what McDonald's does. Look what Chick-fil-A does. You're going to have to approximate what they do. And the cool thing is we don't have a lot of tech debt there because we don't do it today, right? And so we can actually go in, and I don't have to rip out a deep fryer to put in a deep fryer of a modern style. I don't have one today. I can go out and buy the best stuff today that connects into an IoT system and puts all my food theater in the store on automated pilots. So I don't have to hire chefs. I can hire people who can learn how to do it. And the system teaches you how to make really good food.
Leverage your tech debt as a competitive advantage.
Absolutely. I mean, this is why Mexico got cell phones faster than we did.
Yeah.
We all had landlines. They didn't have landlines. And so cell solved that problem. And so Mexico all had cell phones while we were still trying to figure out what AT&T needed to do.
Okay. This has been an incredible conversation. Any final thoughts? What else would you tell the C-store industry at large in terms of how they need to be thinking about technology?
So be smart. And a couple of things. One is, if your C-suite isn't working with the IT department, then you are wasting a strategic weapon. Okay. IT is a strategic weapon. It's not all about just building a new location. It's doing it smart. So have that future back vision that the entire C-suite agrees to, so that the next time somebody comes in and says, hey, I want you to do this shiny new program, you can look at it against the roadmap and say, well, how does that help the roadmap? We still may do it, but I want everybody to understand it doesn't help us at all to where we want to be.
It slows down the things that we do want to do.
Exactly, because right now we're dealing in a belt and suspenders type, or a chewing gum type of thing. Our guys are quickly fixing products or problems because the other guys need that, and nobody's working on the vision. Nobody's working on the long-term strategy. Ultimately, it costs us a lot of money to do it that way. The other thing is I get started now. And what I mean by getting started now is I would not board another vendor that couldn't prove that they were standards compliant. There's a lot of guys out there that are standards compliant 5 years ago, never at all. The marketing guys will do a deal with the company, and when they go to implementation, it's like, oh, there's all this integration work because they're not standards compliant. And it didn't get built into the budget. So now it's really expensive for them to do, and everybody's like, well, that was a crappy program, right? No, ask your vendors right up front, are you Connexus or IFSF compliant? Because if you're not, I want you to discount your product because I'm going to have to pay for integration, and by the way, I'm going to have to pay for care and feeding. Every time these guys upgrade, you're going to have to upgrade. I'm going to be the guy paying for it. Yeah. So non-standard is the gift that keeps on giving, right? You're taking on their product burden. So that to me is something you could do today and get that inculcated around the entire organization. The other thing, the last thing, and the most important, is digital culture. You can have all the best technology in the world, but if your people are not digitally savvy, you've just wasted your money. By all means, don't buy the technology. That's my advice. Go back to cash registers. You've got to have a digital mentality. Hire the millennials, hire the Gen Zers and the Gen Xers. Hear from them. This is one thing I was very impressed with Texas Born. When they hired my daughter and her friends, they brought them down to the office and said, we want you to do some TikToks about the store. My girls went nuts over this. They were doing TikToks, they were on social media, and that was because what they were really doing is they're saying, hey, you guys are the next generation consumer, tell us how we're not doing well. They took them to 5 restaurants.
Oh, wow.
And said, tell us which one is best.
Yeah.
And so they were doing a lot of deep research just by talking to teenagers, which is the next group. So I thought that was awesome because they're trying to build a digital culture that's savvy to the emerging consumer, not me. Because I'm heading off to the rest home in about 10 years.
You stop talking like that. I tell you, it's astounding to me that a technology discussion is going to end on the human factor, and that really is where it is.
You know where I learned this was Vish Ganapathy. One guy I've really got a lot of respect for, and he's now at Google. He's now in charge of Google consumer experience in retail for Google. Yeah. And he's spoken for us for 3 times, always gets a great response. And he always ends it by saying, I'm a technologist, all this technology is meaningless unless you have a digital culture. Wow. And for somebody who was at Accenture and IBM and now at Google to say that technology is meaningless without people to use it, I believe that.
That's the point to take away from this. Gray, thank you very much for taking the time.
Tim, I always love talking to you, man. You're my best questioner.
I appreciate that very much. Everyone, we've been speaking with GrayTaylor, Executive Director of Connexus, and we're coming to you from the NACS 2022 trade show floor.
See you soon.